Hi, welcome everybody. Marilyn here with Cotton and Chocolate, and welcome to 2022 Saturday Sampler. This is Plum Fusion. Glad to have all of you with us. Welcome back for all of you returning Saturday Sampler folks. So thrilled that you're joining me once again. And for all of you that are new, well, hey, welcome in. I'll go through just the start of Saturday Sampler. You returning and old savvy folks know how this works. But those of you that are new, I'll fill you in. Every month we post 2 videos for the block. The first one is an introduction to the block and the cutting, and the second video is for piecing. So if you have the Flexi program, meaning that you may or may not be coming into the shop and watching the live demo, you will see it all here. And then those of you that come into the shop and pick up your block and come to the program, I'll be going through this also, but a lot of you like to come and watch it also when you're piecing at home to get a little overview of the exact fabrics and the numbering, how I do it, and to remind you of how to piece it later on, even though you're watching me live at the shop. So it's just a great overview. And so just to kind of go through how it works, you will be getting the full pattern at the start of the year. And you'll get a notebook unless you've designated that you don't want it sent to you if you're getting everything mailed to you. And then what's really nice, you will get a color pattern, and in that of course is the overall picture of the quilt, and then inside is a color view of all of the blocks, some of this in the setting pieces, some of the setting in the back, and then of course the front. But another important item down here is a color guide, because the actual patterns are in black and white. And so you have a color chart here of all 12 fabrics, the color look, and then the black and white view. And that's really important. So you don't really have to put a swatch chart together for yourself, but it's important every month to review this to make sure that you're grabbing the right fabric. And of course, when I start, I'll number them for you. And it's a nice thing to do too, just to make sure that some of these lighter ones, they get a little confusing. So you want to make sure that you're grabbing the right fabric when you're piecing the block. And the other thing that I do also is when you get your pattern, I actually put them in page protectors because they're printed a little close to the side. So if you hole punch them, you might be losing some of the information on your pattern, but that's up to you. So any way you want to do it, but that's a nice way to go about it. Okay, so that's just a little entry. We'll be giving you an information sheet, and then Jerry's sending out an email, and every month he'll send out an email right before the Saturday of the program, giving you information and a link to these videos. But he's also sending one out this week with just some overall information of how the program works, so you have a heads up, and we'll have one printed out for you also. And it gives you some information on the tools that I'm using, the four rulers that I love. I'll be demoing those every time that I introduce them during the month when they come up in one of these blocks. I'll demo them a couple times, and then as we move through the year, I won't demo them again, but a lot of them I have separate YouTube videos on our website that just shows them separately, so you don't have to remember what month I introduced them if you need a little heads up on them, okay? So the 4 tools that I will be using through the year are the Tucker Trimmer, which I'm going to use this month. It's the Tucker Trimmer 1. And we do have all these available at the shop, and we love you supporting Cotton and Chocolate. It's what keeps us the doors open. So please buy them from us if you can. And then the block lock, which I have the 6.5 inch size, and so all these blocks are oversized. You cut them down to size to make them fit perfectly. And so I'm really about precision piecing. And if you're a little bit newer and hopefully admire how the quilt is put together and how well they are pieced and look, I want yours to look like that too. And hopefully by the end of this year, yours will. And I will work with you to make sure it looks like that. So block lock is how we oversize the half square triangles and then cut them down to size. So I really like working with the 6.5 inch. It's pretty versatile and it works with a lot of different sizes. So even though we're really only working with about one size or so in this quilt, it's very versatile for a lot of other quilts that I make and that I teach. And if you take other classes with me, you'll know that I use this quite a bit. I use the Quilter's Magic Wand, and that's for marking some of the half square triangles and some of the hourglasses in this quilt. And then the wing clipper is for our flying geese. This is another Deb Tucker ruler that I love. Love, love, love. And then our folded corner clipper, which is by Creative Grids. And so, do you have to buy these rulers? Absolutely not. Do I love them? Yes. And I'll show you why. And then you can make your own choices. Do I use these in a lot of other quilts? I use them in tons of other quilts. And so they really work for me, and they really do help make my quilts and my blocks turn out really well. I've used them in the last 4 or 5 years in the Saturday Sampler. Okay, so enough of that. The first thing, though, that I think you should do to check to make sure that you are piecing well and that your blocks are going to come out the correct size. These are all finishing. These are not finishing. They're raw edge before you sew them in at 12.5 inches. So you really want your block to come out to 12.5 inches. Is that important? Well, yes. Okay, look at where we are. We want these to come out the correct size because then we have all these other pieces that fit around it. And they have to be a particular size. So everything has to fit. And we have very few spacers, if any, to, ease things in. And these are all batiks. So if you've ever worked with a batik, they're on a finer weave of fabric, and that means they have very little stretch, no easing in. So what does that mean? We need to cut well, we need to cut precise, and we have to have a good seam allowance. So how do you know if you have a good seam allowance? Well, I check mine, and I check mine periodically to make sure that it's good. So what I did here is this is your seam allowance check, and I really, really hope that you check your seam allowance before you start this project. Cut 3 1.5 inch strips of any fabric, a scrap fabric, sew them with what you feel is your 1/4 inch or a scant 1/4 inch, and then press the seams however you normally press them, and then you're going to measure this inner seam with your ruler, and that top middle measurement should be a perfect 1 inch, meaning that it took a 1/4 inch off of each side after you pressed it open. This should be a 1 inch finished. Okay, and mine is, yay. But after you sew for a while, things can move. I have a Bernina that I sew on, and I use a 1/4 inch foot. But still, since the day I've had it, I have to move my needle over 1 tick to get a perfect scant 1/4 inch. I have to do it, and I know it. And my husband sews on a Bernina, and he has to move his over also, even with the 1/4 inch foot, based on how it sews. Okay, so check your seam allowance. And if this isn't 1 inch, if it's too small or too big, you need to adjust. And if you don't understand that, please hit me up on my email, marilyn@cottonandchocolate.com. Okay, or call the shop and leave me a message so we can work with you. I can work with you, and let's get that settled before you start sewing your block, okay? So, anyways, any other information on how the Saturday Sampler works we'll have in our email, and I'll have on the information. You can come see me on Saturday. The other thing I wanted to point out is no matter if you're on the Flexi program or coming in, the blocks are not ready to pick up until this designated Saturday. They aren't ready ahead of time, okay? Even if you bribe me with chocolate or Diet Coke, well, I'm easily bribed. But even with that bribe, they just aren't ready. Okay, so you can pick them up anytime on that Saturday or after, and all that information is in the sheets, okay? So, moving on to cutting for block 1. They don't have any interesting names. So, it's just block 1 on page 1. Easy to follow. But I will give you a little heads up. We have a lot of blocks to make. And I'm sorry I don't have the quilt behind me. Normally it's behind me during all this filming, but it's at the quilters. So exciting. So it will be at the shop on Saturday. but it's being quilted right now. It's going to look so nice. I know. I'm super excited. So, but I'm going to let you know that 1 month you'll be making 1 block. The next month you're going to be making 2 blocks. And the third month in each quarter you're going to be making a block, and then you're going to be giving an assignment for doing some setting. I know. Well, you don't get a big quilt like this without, some sewing. So I'm easing you in slow. I'm setting the stage with just 1 block this way. You're like, oh, that's like super easy. I know. But then, next month we're going to have a little bit more, and then we'll have a little more. And then the next month you'll have 1 block, but you're going to have 2 months to get the setting done. So I got assignments for you, and I will come to your house and check on you. All, 70 plus of you, but you better have some, chocolate ready for me. Okay, so on to the cutting. Fabric 1, and see I have them labeled, and if it helps you to label your fabric before you piece them and do all that, then go ahead and do some labels. All right, so fabric 1, you need 2 6-inch squares. Good to go. Fabric 2 is 1 5.5-inch square, cut twice on the diagonal for 2, 4, 6, 8. I don't know, some triangles. I didn't count them. 4 triangles. All right. Fabric 3, you need 1 5-inch square. Cut that first off your strip, and cut it twice on the diagonal for 4 triangles, and 2 3.25-inch squares. Okay. Good. Yep. All right. Fabric 8. You need 2 3.25-inch squares. That's for half. So when you see these, it's half square triangles. Oh, while I'm doing this, I want to mention at the beginning of your pattern, it's going to have all these like general information for piecing. So you can follow that, but I'm going to have different piecing information for you that you might want to pay attention to. But it's your quilt. You can do whatever you want. But I highly advise that you listen to me. I really suggest that. Okay. So, number 9 are 2 5.25-inch squares, and you're going to cut them once on the diagonal. Okay, just once. Don't cut it twice. Okay. And then fabric 10, this big beautiful one, cut 2 6-inch squares, and don't cut them in half or on the diagonal. Just leave them like that. So that shows you right here. How did I know which fabrics they were? I told you already. If you were listening, follow your swatch chart on the bottom.
What if I make a mistake?
Oh, what if you make a mistake? Well, there's 2 options. Half of my big group of, 77 or 80 of you bought the Oops kit. There was an Oops kit that we sold at the beginning that was a fat quarter of all 12 fabrics. So you will have your Oops kit that you can dig into and cut off your Oops kit and, fix that. If you didn't buy the Oops kit, you could change your mind and buy one. Or you have to come into the shop. A small cut is $1. A bigger cut is $2. You can come in and get that. So you got to come back to the shop and get a new piece. Okay? So what if you screw up the whole kit? Then we have a fee for that. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But I think Jerry, my cameraman, Jerry, says he thinks it's 10, but I'll have to look that up. It's in the information. Okay, so I'll see you in a few minutes. We'll be piecing the block. I'll see you then. Thank you.